I built two schematic traces for these lighthouse passages. One chooses directly from the language model's probabilities. The other adds a secret selection rule. Which history can a key recognize? Passage A says, "By sunrise, the lighthouse beam swept across the bay and faded into the morning haze." Passage B says, "By sunrise, the lighthouse beam crossed the harbor before dissolving into the pale fog." Neither passage carries hidden characters or metadata. A detector holding the right secret key does not judge their style. It reconstructs private preferences from the choices and ranks one passage higher. This experiment comes from a real announcement. Anthropic says future Claude models will add a text watermark using a version of SynthID-Text, a system developed by Google DeepMind. Anthropic describes the plan at a high level. The detailed mechanism we can inspect comes from a peer-reviewed Nature paper written by the DeepMind researchers. Claude's production settings remain private, so our demonstration will keep the confirmed Claude plan separate from the paper's published mechanism. In a few minutes, we will run that reconstruction and reveal whether A or B follows the keyed demonstration. First, take the detector apart backward. Freeze passage B after the word harbor. The detector sees the finished tokens and the words immediately before that choice. The lighthouse beam crossed the... It combines that recent context with a secret key. In the SynthID-Text paper, this combination produces reproducible pseudo-random scores for possible tokens. The scores on screen are schematic because Claude's exact function and values are private. Within our demonstration, the same context, token, and key always recreate the same score. Suppose harbor scores high for this context. That is one match between the observed text and the private scoreboard. It proves almost nothing. Chance alone sometimes lets ordinary sampling land on a strong keyed score. Move one token earlier. The context changes, so the scoreboard changes. Move earlier again, and it changes again. The detector can walk through the whole passage this way, recreating a score for every observed choice without running the language model that wrote it. Why should a watermarked passage agree with those scores more often? To answer that, rewind from the finished word to the moment it was generated. Before harbor appeared, the language model produced an ordinary next token distribution. Harbor had some probability, so did water, bay, and fog. Watermarking does not replace this distribution with a secret vocabulary. It changes how the final sample is selected from it. The paper names this selection procedure tournament sampling. Start by drawing candidate tokens from the model's distribution. In the simplest match, draw two. Imagine that we draw bay and harbor. Now introduce a secret referee. The referee looks up the keyed score for each candidate under this exact context. If harbor scores higher, it wins and becomes the emitted token. A larger tournament can repeat the same operation through several rounds, but two candidates are enough to expose the logic. The referee analogy has a strict boundary. No one is judging which word sounds better, and the key is not storing a list of approved words. The candidates already came from the language model. The keyed scores only decide which sampled candidate survives this match. Ordinary sampling would have emitted one random draw directly. Tournament sampling asks the ordinary distribution for candidates, then uses the private ranking to select among them. That is where the statistical trail enters generation. This seems to create a problem. If the referee keeps favoring certain winners, shouldn't the text distribution become visibly distorted? Hold one context and one key fixed. In that single case, harbor may have the favorable score. Now replace the key with many independently random keys. Under one key, bay wins the comparison. Under another, water does. The secret ranking changes while the candidate draws still come from the original distribution. The paper proves a non-distortion result for its two-competitor construction. When you average over the keyed randomness, the winner follows the original next token probability law. This does not mean every watermarked response matches an unwatermarked response. Our particular keyed run can choose harbor, where the ordinary run chose bay. The claim concerns the probability law across keyed randomness. Here is the intuition. Before the secret scores are revealed, Either of the two sampled candidates is equally likely to outrank the other. The winner is therefore like selecting one of two ordinary draws without favoring a token identity in advance. A fixed key creates a reproducible correlation. Averaging over keys removes the permanent preference. That distinction is the heart of the method. Ordinary marginal probabilities, but an unusual conditional pattern visible to the key holder. Return to our two lighthouse passages. In the classroom trace, passage A is the ordinary control. Passage B follows the paper-style keyed tournament relationship. Now, run the detector over A. At one position, the observed token happens to score high. At the next, it scores low. The cumulative trace rises, falls, and stays near the ordinary baseline. Run the same reconstruction over B. The first high score could still be luck. The fifth is more interesting. Across many usable positions, the observed winners agree with the private rankings more consistently, so the cumulative score separates from the control. This is why looking for one special word cannot work. Harbor is not watermarked vocabulary. In another context or under another key, it may score poorly. The evidence lives in repeated agreements between each observed token and the scoreboard reconstructed for its own context. A detector eventually compares its aggregate score with a threshold. Put the threshold lower and the detector catches more watermarked passages, but it also creates more false alarms on ordinary text. Put it higher and false alarms fall, but more watermarked passages slip through. Crossing the chosen line supports one statistical decision. It does not turn that decision into certainty. Anthropic has not published Claude's threshold, what texts its detector will be calibrated on, its false alarm rate, its tournament depth, or its scoring formula. The line in our demonstration explains the trade-off, not Claude's undisclosed settings. The detector needs repeated choices, which makes some text much easier than other text. Descriptive prose is a road with many forks. The lighthouse beam can plausibly continue in several directions. A short factual answer is closer to a single lane. The capital of France is strongly constrains the next token. Exact quotations, low-temperature continuations, and much code leave fewer safe alternatives for a tournament to choose among. The road analogy stops at choice. A language model is not traveling through physical space. Entropy measures how spread out its next token probabilities are. The shared relationship is simply that more viable branches create more opportunities for keyed selection. Editing attacks the evidence after generation. Delete a word and one scored position disappears. Change a phrase and several later contexts also change. A full rewrite substitutes new decisions for nearly every original one. The DeepMind researchers group the remaining attacks into three open problems. Scrubbing tries to remove the signal. Spoofing tries to make unrelated text appear watermarked. Key stealing tries to learn enough about the private pattern to help with either attack. The paper does not present watermarking as tamper-proof. Longer text can supply more evidence, but there is no universal accuracy number. DeepMind's experimental results change with the model, passage length, temperature, sampling system, detector, and allowed false alarm rate. Those research measurements are not Claude measurements. Return to Anthropic's announcement. The company said future Claude models will use a version of SynthID-Text. The phrase "a version" matters. The Nature paper gives us a mechanism to understand, while Claude's production details remain private. If a future Claude detector reports a strong match, it supports only the limited claim that Claude probably contributed to some portion of the text. It cannot identify the user. It cannot prove Claude wrote every word. It says nothing by itself about truth, plagiarism, ownership, or intent. Passage B did not contain an invisible stamp. It contained ordinary tokens with a particular history. Candidates drawn from a normal distribution, winners selected through reproducible keyed comparisons, and enough of those comparisons accumulated for the same key to recognize the pattern later. The detector recognizes that history of choices. The prose itself never has to look marked. The related next token episode follows the machinery that creates the candidate distribution before the secret referee ever sees it.